All right, everyone, buckle up. Because today we are diving deep into leadership with the one and only, the late, great Dr. Myles Munroe. This guy, he just had this way about him, this energy that could make leadership exciting.
Yeah, Dr. Munroe, he really did transcend that typical leadership guru box. I mean, he was a powerhouse on stage, a sought-after consultant, and he always brought his faith and his real-world experience to the table, and you could just tell people connected with his message.
And that message, his core philosophy, was pretty revolutionary, I'd say. Every single person, he believed, is born to lead. Not just, the CEOs, the politicians, the ones with all the fancy titles, but everyone.
It's funny, such a simple idea, but it really did resonate with people. It was like a breath of fresh air. He used to point out this interesting contrast. He'd say, picture a packed miracle service buzzing with excitement. People are on the edge of their seats.
Exactly.
Versus a leadership seminar, maybe a little less than half full.
Oof. Yeah. It's true, though. It's like we're almost conditioned to think leadership. Nah, that's not for me. That's for, well, someone more important.
Yeah.
But isn't there this part in all of us, deep down, that wants to make a difference, to leave our mark?
Absolutely. And Dr. Munroe, he tapped into that yearning. He'd say true leadership isn't about inheriting a corner office. It's about igniting the potential that's already inside you.
And one of the examples he'd always used to illustrate this was Jesus and his disciples.
You'd think, right, Jesus drawing those massive crowds, he'd have gone with a more the merrier approach to leadership.
Surround yourself with an entourage. Yeah.
Exactly. But no, he chose 12 disciples. And get this, he specifically sought out businessmen. He knew the power of small group transformation.
This always stuck with me, this detail Dr. Munroe pointed out. Jesus, he wasn't swayed by the crowds, by the sheer numbers. He was drawn to the individuals, those who were hungry for growth, for something more.
It all circles back to Dr. Munroe's emphasis on self-discovery. It's about honing in on your unique value, your inherent strength. He had this brilliant term for it. Your terminal wire.
Love that term.
Mm-hmm.
For those who haven't heard it before, what exactly do you mean by terminal wire?
Okay, so imagine a complex electrical system. Your terminal wire is that one specific connection that allows your unique energy, your power, to flow out into the world to actually make things happen.
So it's not enough to just have this internal power source, this terminal wire, right?
Yeah.
Got to know how to actually connect it, channel it.
Exactly, and that's where self-awareness comes in. Discovering your terminal wire means getting real with your natural abilities, the stuff you're just effortlessly drawn to, those things you do that just light you up, the impact you make almost without even realizing it.
Love it. And this makes me think of another thing Dr. Munroe was big on, this idea that it's not just about raw talent. It's bigger than the skills you have or haven't learned. It's about attitude, about really owning your potential.
100%. Dr. Munroe, he was adamant that true leadership went way beyond just capability. He believed in cultivating this unshakable belief in yourself and your capacity to make an impact. He used this illustration, the lion and the elephant.
Oh, I love this one. Okay, so physically, we all know who has the advantage there, right? But in that moment, when that lion locks eyes with the elephant, what does it see?
Lunch.
Yes, not a threat, not an obstacle, lunch. And that unwavering belief, it dictates its actions and ultimately its success, right? Which I think is a powerful reminder for us because a lot of times we are our own biggest obstacle.
It's like we're driving through life, but we've got the emergency brake on. We settle for a fraction of what we're truly capable of. He used to use the analogy of a car speedometer to illustrate this point.
Okay, hold on. We got to unpack this speedometer analogy. What was he getting at?
So picture this. You buy this car, right? And it's built for speed, designed to hit 180 miles per hour. But do we ever really push it to its limits? Most of us? No way. We're cruising along at 50, holding ourselves back, with fear, with societal expectations, or just simply not believing we've got what it takes to really push it. Dr. Munroe, he'd challenge us on that. He'd ask, why not 180? Why settle for a fraction of what we were designed to do?
It's like we've got this supercar engine under the hood, but we're stuck in the slow lane. So how do we break free from those self-imposed limitations? Dr. Munroe talked about this idea of serving your gift. What did he mean by that?
He was really passionate about this point. True leadership wasn't about chasing accolades or climbing the corporate ladder. It was about finding your unique talents and using them to make a real difference. He often compared it to, like, a fruit tree.
Okay, I'm listening. Break down the fruit tree analogy for us.
So think about it, right? You don't go to a fruit tree for its shade or its sturdy branches. You're there for the fruit. It's what the tree is meant to offer. And similarly, people are drawn to the unique value that you bring to the table, the way your talents can nourish and benefit others.
So how do we uncover that gift, that fruit we're meant to share? Some folks, it seems like they just radiate purpose, like they were born knowing their calling. But for a lot of us, it can feel, well, kind of elusive.
Dr. Munroe, he'd say it starts with understanding your purpose. See, he believed we weren't put on this earth to just exist, to go through the motions, right? He called that having a job versus doing your work.
There's that distinction again, your job versus your work, finding that thing that makes you come alive, where your passions and your talents really intersect.
Exactly. He used to say that creation implies purpose. Think about it. God created fish to swim, birds to fly, each one equipped with unique abilities to fulfill their role. And just like that, he created each of us with inherent gifts, with passions that were meant to be shared with the world.
He had this great line. He'd say, God wouldn't design a car to go 180 miles per hour and then just leave it parked in the garage. He wants us to hit the open road, to unleash that potential.
Exactly. And this is where it gets really interesting. Just like a car needs every single part working in harmony to run smoothly, the world, it needs each of us to contribute our unique gifts if it's going to function at its full potential.
So it's not just enough to have that aha moment to discover our gifts, right? We have to actually put them into action. We have to serve those gifts.
Absolutely. And that service, it can look like a million different things. It's not about titles or positions. It's about making a real contribution to something bigger than yourself.
So what would Dr. Munroe say to someone listening right now, someone who's feeling a little lost, unsure of their own value or how to really make a difference?
I think he'd tell them to shift their focus, to stop dwelling on limitations and start focusing on potential, to stop comparing themselves to others and start exploring their own passions, their talents.
To quiet that inner critic, that voice that says, you're not good enough, or what difference can you possibly make?
Because here's the thing, that inner critic, it's wrong. We all have a unique contribution to make, a gift to share. He'd always remind people this journey, it's not about instant gratification. It's about embracing the process. It's about growth, about exploration, about stepping outside of that comfort zone.
Because sometimes that's where the most incredible growth happens, right? When we challenge those old beliefs, those voices that tell us we're not capable of greatness.
It's about recognizing that we all have that leader within us, just waiting to be awakened. And sometimes all it takes is that first step, that one act of courage to really share our gifts with the world.
Love that. Taking that first step. For someone who's feeling a bit lost, what might that first step even look like? Where do they even begin?
Dr. Munroe, he had this way of making things so clear, so simple. He'd say, imagine this, God's holding this giant jigsaw puzzle, right? Wow. And he's searching for that one perfect piece, the one that's going to complete this section. And guess what? You are that piece.
Whoa.
You, with your unique shape, your specific set of edges, without you, that picture, it's incomplete.
Wow. Okay, that is powerful. And it's funny because we often think of leadership as this big, loud, in-your-face kind of thing.
Right.
But really, it's about finding your place, your unique contribution.
Yeah.
Even if it seems small, even quiet at first.
Exactly. He'd always say, true leadership, it's not about volume, it's about impact. Serving your gift, no matter how subtle or grand it might seem, and trusting that it's going to have ripple effects, far beyond what you can even imagine. He also reminded people, a lot of times, our culture, it defines leadership in such a narrow way.
Right. It's all about titles, positions, the things society tells us equal success.
Exactly. But Dr. Munroe, he saw it differently. He'd say, leadership isn't about having a title. It's about having influence. And that influence, it shows up in our everyday lives, the way we treat our families, the way we interact with our colleagues, our communities.
It's about asking, how can I use what I'm good at, what I'm passionate about, to make a difference?
Right.
However big or small that difference might be.
Exactly. And that's what made his message so powerful, so enduring. It wasn't about fitting yourself into some predefined mold, It was about becoming the best, truest version of yourself. Recognizing that we all have that leader within us, just waiting for the opportunity to emerge.
And sometimes all it takes is that one brave step, that one act of courage to really share those gifts. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the inspiring words of Dr. Myles Munroe, I think it's important for us all to sit with the question he so often posed. If leadership isn't about seeking a following, but about serving your own unique gift, what is the gift that you're being called to share with the world?
That is a powerful question.
It really is. And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder that one. Thanks for joining us on this journey into the transformative wisdom of Dr. Munroe. Until next time, remember, you are capable of incredible things. Don't be afraid to share your gifts with the world.